Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining me on another video. This one's going to go back to the IT side of things. I am here in my office. Actually, this is kind of our main server room, if you will, even though there's more network gear in it than anything else. You can call it an IDF, what have you. You can see the modem for my office is right here, and it goes up through the walls and it snakes out to our office upstairs. But this entire installation here belongs to the landlord of the building who I lease my office space from, and he has some failing Netgear switches here that need to come out and need to be replaced. So what better way to do it than to gather some switches that are, readily available on eBay. Also, cost was a huge issue for, upgrading this environment. There wasn't really much of a budget, and we had to just do kind of a break-fix mode to get the port situation addressed. So I purchased two of these 48 port Cisco Catalyst. This is a 2975 GS series with 48 ports of PoE and then 4 uplink ports for SFP connected optical or what have you. These are the stackable switches. They do have the proprietary Cisco stacking capability, single power supply, and more than anything, these were dirt cheap. In some ways, two of these cost as much as probably one of those when they were new. So if these were great enough for the enterprise for 10 years or so, they'll be great for a small business that doesn't need to use all the features and bells and whistles of these the way that you would use them in an enterprise. So we figured this would be a great little upgrade from those to this. Also looks better. Personally, I love Cisco gear. I have my entire office upstairs is outfitted with Cisco switches, and it's really the greatest thing ever. So to give you a little bit of pointers about this rack, and forgive my back facing the camera, but I'll just talk over this a little bit because this video is not really an afterthought, but more so just let's get through this kind of quickly type video. So you can see that there's already one of these switches in here. I did not install it. It's still loose. You could still wiggle it. It's just kind of sitting in here to try to get placement and fitment all set. One of the things you also notice is that this is a 2-post telco rack. It's not a 4-post server cabinet. We are standing underneath a staircase, so the ceiling kind of slants down. The light is right, I can almost touch it right here. I know it's off camera, but it is what it is. And the contractor that put this in, it's actually bolted into the floor with giant concrete studs. The floor is concrete, and you can't move it. You can wiggle it, but you can't move it. So, and that's for earthquake protection because we are, after all, in Los Angeles, and that's a thing out here. It'd be pretty bad if this rack was standing on something like this. Anyway, so one of the first things that I noticed is that there wasn't much space from where the ears of, say, a switch go to this wall. For example, this is a full depth switch. You can see how deep it is. They do make I think 2/3 depth versions, but more expensive and didn't have PoE. So I had to kind of get creative. You can kind of see that a little bit of engineering, and I realized that these ears turn the opposite direction, and you have the ability to rack this into a 2-post rack. I don't know if that's by design, but the cutouts on the switch actually allow for this. There wasn't any modifications done on the switch other than the fact that I just flipped the ear 180 degrees. And you can see it fits. One of the things I will be sacrificing, and yes, I am going from 48 ports with 12 ports PoE to 96 ports. And the reason I did this is because I want these switches, I want this network to essentially outlast the company. If the company grows, after COVID, if they decide to tear into this warehouse and, grow out this way, put, cubes, desks, whatever in here, or even go up. This is a very large space over here. And you guys have seen the giant green screen that's over here, so I'm not even gonna bother taking the camera off and flipping it around, so forgive that. But if they want it to grow, 96 ports, all of them PoE, good to go. If they decide to get more access points, more phones, it can fully, take care of that. So, because of the fact that there's about an inch or so, I can get 3 fingers in there, so there's about that much space, between the butt end of the switch and the wall. I'm not going to be able to really do anything logistically behind there. So I mentioned that this does have the stacking capability, and I do have stacking cables for these, but unfortunately the stacking cables come out about 3.5 inches, so I'm not going to be able to use that in that space. Also, on top of that, the power cables, the standard IEC power cables that come with these switches, they don't have a 90-degree, plug end on, on the cable. This one I got, this was an Amazon buy. I'll put it in the link down below. But it's essentially 90 degrees on both ends, on the outlet end and on the switch end as well. So, this will give me all the, the cable part of it will be out to the side and down, as opposed to coming out the back and then with the strain relief kind of pressing into the wall. I didn't want to do that. Also, I didn't want to damage anything. I just wanted to make things a little bit better. So, with single power supply switches, 2 power cables. So we have that. I also have my assortment box of every single rack, screw, barrel, connector, everything that you can think of, from these little doodahs to these little doodahs, and some more of these. These are a different size. And then, of course, an assortment of screws that go into every single kind of rack that's pretty much on the market today. So I have 16 trays here with screws. So I'm going to use, because this is a threaded rack, I'm going to use the standard thread screws for this rack. And I'm actually going to use my trusty DeWalt little gyro screwdriver to actually test this out, make sure that it does fit. Pretty sure it does. Maybe not. Let's try the next one down. I think that this one will do. Yep. That one will do. So I have to sort these out because I have a whole bunch of them, so we should be good. We should have a minimum of 8 of those, so not a problem. One of the things that I'm kind of bummed about is the fact that I can't use the stack cable. So what I did, in true overkill fashion, because these are very great switches, I want to do an LACP lag, or an ether channel lag between this switch and the one that's over here on the floor that needs to be put in. I'm going to put them both above the this termination panel here, this patch panel, and one of them's going to be VoIP. They're going to be a hybrid because they're all PoE ports. I figured half can go into half and then half can go into the other half on the other switch, and then it'll balance it out. Also, like I said, give the ability of growth and scaling if need be. You can add another punch down panel, run more cables, whatever you have to. That's, obviously 96 ports is far greater than the 48 that are currently here, 12 of which are PoE, and 2 of those PoE ports have failed. So we're going to get rid of those and put these in. So You see that I have these short jumpers hanging here. This is probably going to be the temporary lag until the optical stuff comes in. Do I need optical? No, I don't. Do I want it? Yes. Why? Because it's awesome and it looks great. You know, a lot of this stuff, you know, I guess you can say that the better it looks, the better it operates if it's configured properly. And I know that uplinks should be just the best they can be. So optical is the way to go, even if it's only a meter of cable. So, like I said, this stuff was dirt cheap. The transceivers were essentially pennies on the dollar. And the optical cables, I think I bought 2 cables for $8, optical cables. So much less than a Cat 6 patch cable that you can buy at Best Buy. You know, and these I pulled out of a box that are probably 4 or 5 years old or whatever. And yeah, so those are going to be temporary, but they are for, you know, the patching. And I'll do something nice, you know, some kind of a nice coil for the optical back end link between the two chassis. So a lot of this is overkill. I like it. So we're going to continue. So this switch is already kind of in the spot that I want it in. And actually I'm going to pull these cables out that way I don't damage the ports. Right now there's no configuration on these. These are literally, I just tested them. I powered them on. I ran them for, I don't know, about 4 hours or so. I consoled into them and made sure that there were no weird messages in the console or whatnot. And I made sure that all the ports worked, and they all showed up. So, yeah, I think the only thing I may need to do is I may need to break the stack on these, because I had them powered up, stacked together up in the office. So I may have to just reconfigure the stacking part of it, which isn't a big deal. And there's plenty of documentation online to show you how to do that specifically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find these screws and I am going to install this. I can tell you for a fact that there is room back here. In fact, this bundle of cables that's coming out of the ceiling back there is behind the switch. So that's actually what's keeping the switch level. Otherwise it would just teeter back because it's not racked in. But, oh, one other thing I want to point out. Before I figured out that you could do this with the ears, I actually purchased standoffs. It was an Amazon buy that was $10 for 2 of them. So I bought 4 of them, you know, because I have 4 ears to attach. And essentially those standoffs are little brackets that are about 4 inches long, and you install them to this rack, and it brings the rack out 4 inches. They're essentially standoffs, like literally, you know, just imagine this ear being the standoff here. And it allows you to attach the switch to the rack right here as opposed to here. But for some strange reason, they weren't designed properly. The holes didn't line up in any which way, no matter which way you turned it, configured it, they were just wrong. So I'm sending them back. They're on their way back to the Amazon store that I purchased them from, or some pallet in some Amazon returns warehouse that some poor guy that's going to buy a pallet of returns is at some point going to get. So I did my checks, you know, power cables right here. Not going to do the stack. I'm going to be able to just tie the 2 switches together until tomorrow, where I will have the fiber connectivity. The SFPs I already have. I have 50 of them upstairs, so I'm going to bring 2 down and tie these switches together once the optical cabling shows up. So let me dig in through this box and see how many screws I have, because if worse comes to worse, I will have to probably just put 2 screws in just to hold them down, and then actually I'm holding 4 in my hand right now, so I should have enough to do this job. There are 6. Let's see if I can dig out 2 more. There you go, 8 screws. So we're good on that. I'm gonna put these. Let's see where I can put them and lose them. Maybe I'll just put them right here in the box, but in a different tray. So okay, so I have that. I have my trusty DeWalt. This is a cordless screwdriver that I love actually for jobs like this, because it's not heavy. This thing weighs, you know, maybe a pound, or, you know, I don't know, maybe less. Without the battery, actually the battery weighs nothing. But I like that it's rechargeable and that it's in this form factor, because I can stick this in my backpack, and it's in the corner to the side of the laptop, or where my cables are, and then of course I can, you know, quickly take the bit out and actually save on real estate. But I leave that in, and I carry extra bits obviously, and these are magnetic, you know, standard DeWalt stuff. But what I love about this is, first of all, it's got a nice battery gauge right there. It tells you, you know, in thirds what your charge is. So I have about 60% left on here. This model here is the DCF 682 cordless screwdriver. It's 8 volt. It's really nice. I got this at Home Depot a while ago, and it's worked out for me ever since. One of the things I love about it is you hold it like you would an ice pick, like this, and you essentially, this is the little trigger, right? And you also got a little light there. But you hold it like this, or like this, depending on how you like it. But I typically put my pinky on it, and what's great is if you look at this little DeWalt sign, if you press it, it just growls at you. But if you turn it to one side, it starts turning. This would be tightening. Without letting go, you can turn the other way, and it turns the opposite direction. So it's gyro, and depending on how far you turn it will determine its speed. And then you can come back to middle and just let it go, or you can just whatever. So wherever you start, even you can use it this way too. So any orientation, I've used it facing up. I used it, you know, this way, obviously, with racks. Great tool. I think this is one of the best screwdrivers that an IT person that deals with this could possibly use. And I know guys that have smaller versions of it, ones that have better accessories. You know, I typically carry all sorts of multitude of, you know, bits for it. I have some of these torque bits that are great for if you're, you know, on a rampage and you want to torque stuff down. These will break if you go too far. I also have some magnetic couplers and stuff like that that came with it. And also, if I need to do like these kind of, you know, nuts that are up here, I can, you know, I can insert, I guess this is 3/8 socket adapter. I got another, you know, metal one if I want to get festive. You know, these are great. So anyway, enough about the screwdriver. More work. Also, I like holding it by this, so if I ever am in a spot where I need to like guide the screwdriver really gently, I can hold it by this little sleeve. And it's actually, I get a lot of control. I don't strip screws with it that much. Sometimes you just have to strip a screw to feel like you accomplished something. So anyway, back to this. So we're gonna put this switch in, and literally I'm probably going to use the longer bit with the sleeve because of the way, you know, because the way the switch sticks out. I don't want to like come at it at an angle, because then you'll break the screw, or you'll cross thread it, and then you'll have a nightmare to deal with. So I'm going to put this in, line it up with the hole, and just gently put it in. And now it's holding down. And actually, if I had my regular, you know, DeWalt that's in the shape of a pistol, I wouldn't be able to get over here, because we only have, I don't know, probably about 2.5 inches of space right here, so you wouldn't be able to get that gun in there. And even then, it'd be cross-threaded. Here, I can literally put the screwdriver in the hole of the rack and still have like 2 inches before I even touch the switch. So that's going to work out best for for this job. So hold it like you would an ice pick. If you have magnetic bits, this is what you get. Greatness. And then you slowly line it up. You can see that the switch actually is as tight as it's going to get. And by the way, when you do this, if you didn't have anything beneath it, you want to put the screws in the bottom holes. Typically you start with the bottom, so that way if you're holding it and you're putting it in, the bottom ears will hold the entire weight. The bottom screw holes of the ear will hold the entire weight and prevent it from, if you have it like this, the switch can go like this. It'll just fall upwards and it'll sit like this because you only did the top holes. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but it makes sense if you think about it. If you have a screw here and nothing here, the switch has no place to go because gravity's pulling down on it, right? So what happens is the butt end of the switch will go down because you don't have these screws in. This is sitting on top of this this patch panel here, so it had no place to go anyway. So that's why I did the top. Typically, you do the bottom first. Ask any rack guy, and he'll tell you the same thing. If they don't, question them, because it's silly to have to hold it and then, hey man, can you grab me a screw? And then you put it in. No, you want to do the bottoms first, so that way the switch is held. And we keep going forward. And I'll show you guys this case that I have here for all my odds and ends a little bit in more detail here after I get both of these switches mounted. Okay, so that's in. Let's do the next one. Let me make sure that I have enough slack. I guess that's fine actually. Those cables can stay there because they're not really doing anything disruptive. Like I said, I'm going to stack both of these switches on top of each other up here, so that way if he wants to ever rack mount, I suggested an idea that we get rid of this Dell display and actually rack mount either a KVM display or something. There's a Synology NAS right here that I'd love to show you, but you guys are kind of fixed in a locked off position, so I'm just gonna leave it as it is, because if I take you guys off, then I'm gonna have to stop the video and do all that. So there's a NAS over here that's a desktop NAS. It's a DS918 model NAS that's kind of a desktop form factor, and then there's a Dell PC down here that's acting as a server. And it's not rack mountable or anything. They're just standing on the shelves that are, I don't know if you can see this shelf here, but it's just literally a double-sided shelf that you can screw in front and back, and then it holds it in place. There's a PDU here, these two switches, and that's it. This is as simple as it gets. And for the record, none of this is accessed by my company. This is all the landlord's stuff. The only thing I have in here is my temperature probe, which is right here, one of my temp stick probes, and that's the modem that powers my office. And then that blue cable is a separate run that goes into the office up there, and then that blue cable attaches to the back of my 3825 ISR series Cisco router. So none of this stuff is, I don't mix my networks with other people's networks. All of my controllers and switches and stuff are in my office, and then there's a single blue cable coming down here that goes into this modem. And that's it. And it's labeled free and clear. This is the next boy. And I found out with this rack, I have to insert them kind of diagonally, because it's really weird how the cables were installed here, and you kind of have to install it cattywampus to get it to push the cables in so you can actually get the switch in. But as you can see, they line up great. This zip tie is in a inappropriate position, so we're going to move that up a little bit. But as you can see, this rack is standing strong, and those switches aren't going to go anywhere after I get the last 4 screws in. So let me put those in real quick. And I like how the torque of this works. You know, it actually stops. It doesn't keep trying to go. Even if you twist it more, once it's in, it's in. This doesn't have enough juice to, you know, break the heads off the screws or anything crazy like that. So I really like this tool. And I'll see if I can find a Amazon link to it if it's available. And I'll make it, oops, the bit stayed. And I'll put it down in the description if I find it. So really great tool. And you can see how long this is. Like this has some pretty good reach. What, about 6.5 inches or so, maybe 7 inches? I don't know. So and in case you're wondering why it's struggling when I put it in, these screws that I got are painted. They're silver screws, but they're painted black, so they're specifically for black racks. And when you drill them into a fresh hole that hasn't been drilled in before, it's got to scrape the paint off. So that's kind of what you're working through. You're like, and then it goes. So you're about to hear that again. So it's not like this drill is failing or anything like that. That one actually, that screw was used before because it didn't have a problem going in. The other thing I love about this is it's got a light on it. So one of my chief complaints about some of the bigger, like the pistol-shaped drill and the impact wrenches and stuff that DeWalt makes, is that the LED is in the wrong spot. You know, if you have a pistol-shaped drill that you hold like this, you don't want to put the light up here. You want to put the light on the toe where the battery goes and shine it up. Otherwise, you get the shadow of the light that's being blocked by the actual drill itself when you're trying to drill it. So, but this one, you know, holding it like this, and it's on the butt end where the bit is, you can actually see, you know, if, you know, I'm going to try to show you. Like, if you're looking at that, my whole hand is lit up. I don't know if you can see that. You know, it's a different color. Let me wait till the light goes off. Wait till the light goes off. It stays on for a minute. So now it's off, and you can see my hand. But if I put it there and I press the button, it lights up my hand. So it's a good lit. I was about to say lighted. Good lit position. So okay. Let's enough jibber jabber, right? So these are also an aftermarket cable that I got on Amazon. I'll put the link down below. I'm pretty sure these are 10 footers. Don't need 10 footers here because we're going from here to here. This PDU is plugged into the UPSs that are standing on the floor. But I'm still going to use it because it gives you the flexibility that if at some point, you know, you have to move this, if it's a thing, you can undo the concrete bolts and anchors, pull it out, and then you have cables to work with. You know, so I kind of put a little bit of thought into this. So we're going to plug those in. Tell me honestly, don't those two look great in there? Like, isn't that a really decent looking install? I feel the need to clarify this. Why did I put two of these together like this instead of putting one here and maybe one underneath this patch panel? I'll tell you. Because these things stick out 4 inches, maybe a little more, I felt that if I put one here and one here, that you wouldn't be able to get your hands in here to undo these cables. You'd have to use like a flathead or something and pry the little tabs off to get these cables out. So I decided to just put these here and then, you know, essentially just leave it like that because you don't need to get in there. Plus also these the bundle of cable that comes down hangs down over here. I don't know if that's visible on camera, but I don't think I would have been able to get a switch in there, which is why they left 2 U's of space between the punch panel and the switches to begin with. So, and also we have long enough, patch panels that this will reach there from the top. So I'm not worried about it. In fact, because these are already racked, I am just going to do that, so that way the switches are tied together. And that's how they'll be until tomorrow when I do the whole optical thing. Like I said, it's gross overkill, but it's my kind of overkill. I love doing stuff like that. If I can do a stackable back end, I think those stacking cables are 36 gigs a piece, which means if you do 2 of them, you essentially have a 72 gig backplane between the switches. And unfortunately that doesn't work here, so we're just going to use gigabit optical cable, and we're just going to do a ether channel or a lag, a link aggregation between this switch and this switch. All the ports are PoE, all the ports are gigabit. It is not going to be a problem. And if I didn't mention it, these are Cisco Catalyst 2975GS switches. eBay specials. Really good stuff. Like I said, I tested them, I powered them on, and they work. As far as configurations go, and as far as all the other jazz that you can do with switches, whether it's VLANing or actual corporate enterprise grade stuff, these will do it. My main concern is to, give this office a working network that doesn't rely on 2 24-port switches with only 12 ports of PoE, and I think 4, maybe 5 ports of all these are bad. They tested bad. So let's get rid of them. Do a full blowout. I think the whole cost of this, with everything, all the jazz and all the accoutrements, the cables, the power cables, the optical cables, the transceivers, the switches, and everything, all of this I think ended up being $350. So I don't think it's that bad for these kind of switches. I love them, and they work really well. I wouldn't call myself a Cisco expert, with regards to like a CCIE certification, but if I had the time and the money and the effort to do it, I could probably get a CCNP relatively easily. So I know enough about networking, doing this for 22 years, and I know enough about these particular switches. They're not that much different than the 3750s that I run upstairs, PoE versions or not. Some of my favorite gear. Also, I think it just looks great. Like, I think that looks so much better than what's here. And while I'm yapping, I'm going to undo some zip ties, and we're going to plug this in. And I think, this is going to be a nice little surprise for the office team that's coming in here tomorrow. So, like I said, we lease our offices from a CPA. So there's a full building here of accountants and tax professionals and whatnot. And some people will say, well, God, you're cutting awfully close. You're working with their deadlines. It's their tax season and stuff like that. Let me tell you something. I've been in this office for 10 months. These guys never have downtime. Tax season or not, they're working all the time, every day. Sometimes they're in here on the weekends. They're in here on holidays. They're in here, early morning to late. There are times when I've been here with the owner of the company at around, 10, 11, even midnight sometimes. So it just depends on the work. But I feel the need to point out, while I have you guys' attention, that if there's any interest in green screens in or around the Valencia, California area. If you or someone you know needs a green screen, there's a massive green screen here. It spans most of this warehouse. If there's an interest in this, drop me a line in the description because I can give you all the specs. There's a full grid with power, LED, work lights. You can bring your own lights, bring your own cameras. He'll rent this out for you. He'll give you a good deal too. So, and if you really want to know, there's some nice little stories about this green screen being used in the past. You know, they had cars in here. They were shooting some makeup shots and a few other things that were done out in the wild that were messed up or whatever, and they did some reshots in here, and it worked out great. They loved it. So if you're in the LA area and you want to shoot something in front of a green screen, music videos, whatever, I mean, they've pretty much done everything here. If you have an interest in a green screen, a very large green screen. This isn't, you know, your mama's basement green screen. This is a massive, I want to say this thing is 20 feet tall. Yeah, maybe 20 feet tall. And it curves, flat curve, flat bottom towards the floor. The whole floor is green too. I want to say it's 40 feet. So it's 20 by 40, maybe more, maybe less. My eye measurement is not as accurate as I'd like for it to be. So anyway, like I said, if you have an interest, reach out and I'll put you in touch with the owner. All right, so let's see if we can get this in. What I should have probably done is, I can bend the rack a little bit. Oh, of course it's backwards. Yep, that's fine. And then this one will go up. What I think I'm now have a concern is my uplink. The uplink to my office is very close to these two parallel power cables. So I may have to adjust that if I have latencies or a lot of TCP resends. Oh, you know what? This fit perfectly. I could still get my fingers behind the power cables. So, and they just literally need to go to this rack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to power these on first, because, in fact, let me get the zip ties. I had some zip ties here because I don't need all of this length. So we're going to tie these up so that way they stay semi-clean. You know what? I don't think I'm going to have an issue with the power cables all of a sudden, because they're going to go into the back of this PDU like that, and these are going to go just like that. We have air. And of course with Cisco Catalyst, when they first turn on, they're at their loudest. That is maximum fan speed until it starts booting. Then they come down. When the switch is booting, it'll actually come down in noise. So let me plug the next one in, and we'll let them run for a little bit just to get them past the boot, and then we'll slowly start plugging stuff in. So I'm going to wrap this cable up. Oops. Let's not put any holes in the walls, shall we? So the first one just calmed down, and then I plugged the second one in perfect timing. Now you have the second one booting up. But if I turn the lights off real quick, you can see that the switches are booting. The system light is blinking, which means it's booting. And we should be good to go. Once that calms down, then I'll wait for the system light, the master light, and I believe the status light to remain lit. And then we can go through and plug them in. In the meantime, I guess we can just talk a little bit more. I know this video is long, but I did disclose in the title of it that this is going to be a long video. So if you're still sticking around with me, I appreciate you as always. Go down in the comments as always, and leave me your thoughts. Love to further conversations. So if you have any questions about the tools or things I use to do my daily job, let me show you this this kind of stackable crate. I just closed it up so all the bits and pieces didn't fall out. See, it quieted down. So this is one of these organizers that DeWalt makes. You can see that I'm a DeWalt fanboy. I've used them since high school, and I love the tools. So I've also used Milwaukee. I've used Makita, but I typically get these when they're at a decent price. What I like about this particular set is that they're stackable. So what you do is you undo this, you undo the other side, and then these are essentially separated. I have two of them. This one's got some audio stuff in it, some barrels, some USB fittings, because I do a lot of music stuff. But they are stackable. I don't know what their limit is, but you basically put them in and then you just lock them in with that. Same thing on the other side. And then I also lock that, so that way when I'm carrying them like this, or like this, if I'm really creative, you can actually take them and carry them. Obviously, if you stack more than two, then you're gonna have some issues carrying them, but I'm actually done with this, so I'm just gonna set these over here. Really durable, really nice. They travel well, so if you're a traveling guy like me, and you go to sites to do this kind of stuff, you can take all your barrels, your fittings, your adapters, little cables. You can take the little dividers out on the inside and make them, make the little trays larger, so you can have like drill bits or little knives if you do a lot of cutting, like if you do wall cutting and stuff like that, to get cables run. Testing kits you can fit in there, all that jazz. If you wanted to, you can even fit this in there. If you take out like 3 of them, this will fit. And then obviously you just, you pull this and then you just have this in there by itself. So it works out. Like I said, very nice tool. Battery, plug it in, charge it. This thing lasts forever too. I think I did 4 racks with these once, pretty much filled out with storage. Front and back, because on 4-post racks you have rails that tie in the front, and then on the back rail set 2. So used it probably for about 3 days without charging, and it worked for this little tiny battery. Works out great. It is lithium ion. I don't know if there's a flight restriction on tools like this. I guess if you check it on or check it in your the luggage that goes underneath the plane, I guess the check-in luggage, this would be fine. Although I typically pull the battery out when I'm not using it, so it doesn't have a drain on it. So I'm gonna turn the light off again to show you where these switches are. So this bottom one is ready. It's at system, master, and stat. So if you don't have a stack, if you don't have the stacking cables hooked up, all the switches are master, because they are their own switches. If you do an uplink like this, then it's just a switch-to-switch link. There's no stacking. Essentially, if you don't know what a stack is, I'll tell you real quick. A stack is the concept of being able to take, I think, 7 of these. You can stack, I think, 7 of these together and make one logical switch that's visible to the network. And whatever the master is, and you set the master in the config, whichever switch the master is will manage the rest of them. And it's really great because you have a single point of management. So if you need, for example, whatever 7 times 48 is, I suck at math, but whatever that port count comes to, you can stack them all together, and then the network will see it as one switch, even though they're individual switches. You can look at it as a blade stack, maybe. I don't know. They're all their own computers, but they all function together logically as one. And then you can have a nice pile of switches. If you're using these for a core or aggregation layer, these would be great for that. If you have them like this, they can be in the top of rack. So, okay, so turn the lights off again. They're both they're ready, and you can actually see that we already have a green link, which means there's a gigabit connectivity between the two switches. So, word of note, the difference between a Cisco switch, these are multi-layer switches, first of all, so they can do layer 2 traffic handling, which is normal switching, or they can do layer 3 routing, so you can actually have these be set up as a router as well. And the difference between a Cisco switch, well, one of the differences is that switch ports are up by default, which means you don't have to turn them on. Router ports, you have to go into the config and actually turn them on. Otherwise, they're just shut down. But you can see that we have gigabit connectivity between both of the port 48s. So now we're actually ready to pull the cables out of this and put them slowly in here. So we're going to see what's what, and we're going to go forth and try to do some kind of logical, like this is a very long cable, I don't know why, but from the assessment that I did, we have PoE phones, which are all the white cables except for this one and this one. These two white cables are just patches. Blue is all data computers. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to do phones on the bottom. There's no rhyme or reason to this. I can mix and match them too, but just trying to seek out what the OCD factor in my mind would let me do. Because if I take all the PoE and just put them randomly and then intertwine the data from the laptops and desktops in the office, then does it make a difference? No, it doesn't. Visually it might, because the cables are different colors. So let's do that. Let's try to make this as clean as possible. So let's start with the PoE stuff and see if we get not just link, but also negotiation. So we're going to put phone up here, and I'll probably go across the top row just because there's some over here. Let's do that. Let's figure out where the next phone is. It's this one. And I don't know if you can see that, but the phones are already registering. They take a little bit to come up, so it's kind of nice. Okay, so we're going to do that. And this seems to be working out okay. Actually, what I should do is I should get the uplink going between these switches. So I'm actually going to take this out. I'm going to put it up one, because I'm going to use 48 on this bottom one until I get the fiber in. I'm going to figure out what the uplink is. It's the yellow, so it's this guy. This guy. Let's untwist it. And I always do some form of cable management for longer, cables like this that are able to be twisted and, ultimately pinched and broken in some cases. So, looks like we have 4 phones up already, which is great. These phones are beating me. to the job. So see, we can go here. We can just keep it clean, you know. And I'm going in order. So wherever the phones are, I'm just going in order. I'm actually going to put that one there. This one here. And then this one here is going to go there. Like I said, there's no real method to my madness here other than potentially some color coding and you know, something like this. Like I said, nothing crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this guy because it is too long, and I am going to replace it with one of these. I'm going to do the bottom row on that one. So you can actually see that the PoE light is flashing, which means it's, I'm guessing it's negotiating. Because it stopped. So once the phone's powered up, it stopped blinking. Yeah. And then we keep going. So I want to see if there's some more blue. There is some more blue cables here, so I'm going to replace these two white ones with the blue one. Actually, I'm going to get rid of this because there's no longer a requirement for these two switches to be tied together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this non-PoE cable and I'm going to replace it with a blue one just to maintain the color, the semi, I guess, color coding structure that has been here the whole time. So we'll pull it out here. I'm going to plug this in. And we're just going to run this to, let's say, this port here. And then we're going to take this cable and just set it down here on the shelf. That way we have it, but it's not in our face. There's obviously a lot more data cables here, being that there is, what do we have? We have 36 ports that are for data. And so I'm probably going to use up more of, you know, this switch. So maybe we'll actually do this correctly. Start at the top because I don't want to run out of ports here. I can tell you one thing's for sure: these patch cables are very old, or they're heat damaged, because the little sleeves that protect this little latch for this cable are worn, like literally they're broken down, almost like they're faded and cracked. Okay. Okay. Let's go with the next one. Yeah, this one too. A lot of them are kind of broken and faded, which is fine. Here's another example of a very long cable that I'm going to replace with just a patch cable. So I'm glad there's some spares here that I can use for this. Let's put that one here, and let's take this guy out here and plug this in like so. And then we'll take this out, put it on the floor, right next to the other one. And then we'll just go up one at a time, and easy does it, because you don't want to break anything. That would just be extra cost that you have to contend with. Like I said, these neck gears, they're not managed switches. Actually, yeah, I guess they might be. They're smart switches, so I don't know how much management is in there. But they're not configured for anything crazy. I have to now contend with these. So this one's plugged in. So let's run this. I don't know what this goes to, but it's intertwined with power cables. So that's, oh, it goes to this printer. Okay, so we'll just run it up the side here. If it'll let me. Maybe I'll just come out this way. I'll zip tie this to the back of the rack here. So, oh yeah, the printer just woke up because it detected network. It actually says it on the screen. So, good. This goes to. Hang on a second. I don't know if whoever set this up, these go to the back of the Synology. So I'm going to have to make sure that if there is a link, unfortunately the cables are too short. So we're going to have to just go in from the front. And then if anything, I'm going to create a link, an ether channel between these two cables. So I'll just zip tie those there for now. Keep them out of the way. Let's see what else we have here. We have this guy, which goes out that way. I don't know, but it's lit, so we're going to move it. Again, this is a network cable that's intertwined with power and all sorts of jazz, but let me move this UPS a little bit without unhooking everything. It looks like that took care of that. And then this goes down to the PC that's on the floor. So we'll come up this way. It's not on the floor, it's on the bottom of the rack and on the shelf, so I'm just going to put that right there, just to keep it there. And I'll use a twisty for these guys right now, because I don't have zip ties here. I left them upstairs. But what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to make cables that actually fit to length. So that's typically what I do. It's just easier. I don't like buying patch cables that are cut to length. You know, like something like this. That's, I don't know, maybe 6 feet long, and then you only end up using 1.5 feet of it. I do buy patch cables like this for this purpose exactly, to make it look nice and clean and what have you. But I don't like to have, you know, the same length cables going through a rack, because if one cable needs to be, let's just say 3 feet, and you have a 10-foot cable, what ends up happening is you coil it up, loop it up, or shove it somewhere, and then over time it either moves or it gets near power cables, and then you have issues and you can't troubleshoot it because it's all twisted and bundled together. I like to sort of run cables like that, although that is, I know you guys can't see it, you can only see this little piece right here, but it's, you know, the cables are not combed in any way, they're not tight in a bunch, it looks like they got ripped apart or whatever at some point and redone. And I like to actually do it right. So it's easier and cheaper to buy a spool of cable, like say a Cat 6 spool, like 1,000 feet of cable, that then you cut to length. So if you measure it out, like okay, I need 6 feet, like my arms are 6.5 feet long. If I need 6 feet, then I cut 6 feet and I terminate both ends. Done. If I need 3 feet, no problem. Cut it, run it. Either Velcro it in. If you're on an installation that is more dynamic, you want to use Velcro so you're not cutting zip ties. Although I know data centers, like huge scale data centers, that love zip ties. Um, soft layer. I'm not pointing you out, but hey, IBM knows what they're doing, so leave it to them. But I typically use Velcro or things like this just to keep stuff temporarily in place while you're trying to sort stuff out. And then that's it. We can pull the plugs on these. We'll leave them in. I'll just pull the power on them so that way they're not drawing any additional energy from the UPS. But I will leave them there probably for a week to make sure that the entire network and system works. But you can see that without any configuring, without anything, two factory default switches will power up and run a network. You can see all the lights blinking. So phones are on, the computers should be on. We tied them together. We gave them the uplink to the internet. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say goodnight to you. We have crossed an hour. If you're still here with me, God bless you. I really appreciate you viewing this video. But at the same time, I want you to know how much I really appreciate you for taking the time out of your day to watch this video and listen to me just blob about random stuff that comes to my head. So, all the views are appreciated. Please hit like if you like it. If you didn't like the video, go down in the comments. Let me know what I could have done better. If you tell me that I could have made a shorter video, I'm probably going to say, yes, I agree with you. But then I wouldn't have gotten the chance to spend all this time with you. So, yeah. I hope that your 2022 is going a lot better than your 2021 was. We are at the end of February. In fact, today is the 23rd. I meant to do this on the 22nd, so that way we'd have the whole palindrome date thing of, 2/22/22. But, that didn't happen. So I guess life goes on. But I do wish you guys all the best. And please go down in the comments and say hello. Leave me a like. Consider subscribing to the channel. I've noticed that our subscriber count has not moved for the last 6 months. It's been stuck at the same number since pretty much fall of last year. So a little bummed about that, but times are hard. I know COVID's a thing, and actually creatively coming up with content has become significantly difficult in the last 2 years. You guys probably noticed that I go between IT stuff, this kind of stuff, and my Chevy Bolt EV pretty regularly. And I do more about the car because of the state that the whole EV industry is in because of the Chevy Bolt battery recall. So a lot more videos have been about the car. And there's actually a video that's going to be released next week that I'm going to shoot early in the week about updates for the recall. So if you're here because you're following the channel and you like the content that I create, let me know that you are watching and that you like what I'm doing. And I always take feedback with a grain of salt. So if you have something positive to say, I'm always up for advice, comments, feedback in any way. If it's negative feedback or you don't like what I do, I'm sorry. I can only do so much. I'm only human after all. So, but you know what? Now that this is done, I'm gonna turn you around and I want to show you this green screen. So if you are still watching and you're interested in this green screen, I'm literally gonna turn around. Look at the size of this behemoth. You got a grid up top. You got a giant screen, and let me walk you around here. Kitchen, that's always nice. Restroom over there. And currently, it appears that somebody decided to use the floor of the green screen as storage. But you can see that the green screen comes all the way out to here, and that's actually part of the floor. You know, there's some area here that's taped up and kind of used for storage. But let me see if we can get behind this. I'll show you the curve of the green screen. This green screen was really well built. It's very even, very uniform, especially that corner. There was a shoot that was done in here where they parked a car in here all the way up against that corner, and they were able to do what they needed to do. This baby's tall. If you need taller, hit up Universal. If you need smaller, come on over here. Go down in the comments, let me know if you're interested. If you want to do a shoot, I'm sure the rates are good. I'll work with the owner with the landlord to get you a good rate. There's a loading door right here, so you could pull in, and you're literally 1.5 feet away from this set. You know, so if you're interested in it, you can park a van out here or whatever. All you got to do is bring your own lights. So there are work lights up there. They're actually on those 4 LEDs, but you do have a full grid, so you can strap, I don't know, probably some decent LED panels, maybe on an extension to bring them down closer to like, just above head level, maybe at 8 foot mark or whatever, if you're shooting, if you want to do a set or whatever. I do know that these boxes won't be here long. So if you're interested, it is the end of February. So just let me know. This thing is a monstrosity, and it can pretty much fill any need that I can think of. If you're a weather person, you want to do the weather from here, I'm sure that can happen too. Especially now with the switches, we got a screaming internet connection in here now. Anyway, guys, it's been an hour, almost 10 minutes, so 70 minutes of your life has been donated to me. I thank you for that. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching, and thanks for joining me on that refit of this network. I'm gonna go test all this stuff, make sure everything's working. We got good lights, so I have no reason to believe that stuff isn't working. I didn't change anything with the internet connection, so it should just pick back up. In the meantime, have a good evening. Thanks again for joining me. Go down below in the comments and leave me your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe. And until next time, thank you for watching. Have a good evening.